So I am the fourth generation on the farm. My great-grandfather on my father's side and my great-grandmother moved here soon after they were married in 1916. I was born on the farm. 3 calves were born on the same day as me.
True.
My father delivered us all.
Yeah.
And I'm the youngest of 4, so I grew up here. My parents were both farming. My mother managed the dairy and the bed and breakfast, and my father managed the crops and different maintenance aspects of the farm. And so we just grew up always being a place for hospitality, welcoming people from all over the world. And so I grew up at the breakfast table, and my daily chores of feeding the calves was usually with people that had never been on a farm before.
We moved to the farm from Washington, D.C., where we had lived ever since we were married. And that's when we took over management of the farm in 2013. For our overnight guests, we invite them to participate in morning chores with us. So at 7:30 in the morning, they meet us in the barn.
To see all the animals, they want to help feed the animals and milk a cow, bottle feed a baby calf.
Make sure all the animals are fed. And then we go into breakfast together and feed ourselves. And so the barn is an integral part of that whole morning routine.
On the night of the fire, I had just taken a coworker home, went into the house to do some phone calls, and I was sitting at my desk and I heard somebody fly in over those railroad ties. So I looked up and I just saw smoke billowing toward the house. Ran out the door. Within minutes, there were so many volunteers that were stopping along the road. Work crews were coming in and helping us remove the cows from the barns.
And I was at work at Franklin and Marshall and in a department meeting. And so I checked my phone and I had 17 missed calls. And I immediately feared the worst. So I called Elisa right away and she picked up the phone. She was in tears and told me the barn was burned down. People at the department meeting said, "Patrick, is everything okay?" And I said, "No, I'll tell you later." And ran out and drove here as fast as I could. The next day, I think what was most inspiring and encouraging for the two of us was seeing so many people that came at a moment's notice to help us to clean up. There were probably 80 to 100 people, and the vast majority were Amish neighbors. And just the cultural norm of helping each other when times are tough. We felt so fortunate to be here in Lancaster County. We contacted Beaver Creek Construction, Steve Fisher, who sort of organized the whole thing. He's an Amish neighbor, and he was a tremendous help in both planning it and, of course, in the knowledge of how to put it together. On the day of the barn raising, we had about 30 to 40 volunteers, along with Steve Fisher's crew of 4 or 5 people. And Reels Construction brought some people as well to help coordinate. We had maybe another 40 that came to watch, family and friends.
So many of the volunteers brought their own tool belts, and they came and they knew exactly how to jump in. The visible part of the barn raising was, of course, with the construction, but what was invisible was all the work the women predominantly were doing at home. So volunteers, so many neighbors, the women were preparing meals ahead of time because all the volunteers were being fed during the barn raising. And so many of our neighbors, including the Strasburg Railroad and other neighbors, Choo Choo Barn, and then also many of the vendors, so you know, our butcher shop and different entities that we work with regularly held fundraisers or just really reached out and asked how they could help. And that was meaningful, including all the cards and the phone calls we got. My gratitude toward my neighbors and to the community will never be the same. Forever I will try my best to be the type of neighbor that so many have shown and been to us.
We knew that there was no way we could pay back all those people and all the time that was spent here. It was the only way we could hope to pay it back is over a lifetime of doing the same thing in turn to others. And so every fire since that we've heard about, Elisa's been there helping to clean up.
Try to do my part. It's really great to welcome the visitors that come to our farm for farm tours or for the bed and breakfast, to welcome them into the barn, to explain the history and the heritage, and then to show them the craftsmanship that can be done today. So many builders and just visitors are just amazed at the construction. So it's really fun to invite people into this space.
Our beef cattle are in the first floor of the barn. That was set up to allow us to feed hay more easily. The cows are on a 100% grass-fed diet now.
My aunt, who grew up on a farm, had the great suggestion of having a staircase from the lower level to the upper level, which we never had. And I was just so used to going outside and coming up through the bank of the barn. And that staircase, every time I go up it now, I thank my aunt for the great idea.
It was an amazing opportunity to meet every neighbor. This guy who was maybe 80 or 90 years old that came every day was dragging floorboards across the joists on the barn floor with better balance than I had. It was really inspiring and just made me so grateful at the generosity of our neighbors.